Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare
Timrandasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunaitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness 3 minutes. My spiritual master opened my darkened eyes, torchlight of knowledge, offer a circle basis on to him. Guru Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namaste Vishnu Ki Jai. Thank you. So, first of all, before I begin, I'd like to humbly ask for your blessings to give me the strength and the courage to share with you the wonderful information that's been left behind by the acharyas in our paramparas. So what I'm going to share with you has already been discovered and discussed for many, many ages, but hopefully with the blessings of all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, we'll be able to look at it with refreshed, renewed interest. Thank you. So we'll turn to the Bhagavad Gita, and today's verse that's chosen is in chapter 4, okay? And it's 434, so I'm sure most of you, or perhaps all of you, are familiar with this verse. So we'll just take a minute to get to that. If everyone has the Bhagavad Gita, it's chapter 4, verse 34. Okay, is everyone on that page? I'm not. Sorry. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So, Tadvidi Pranipitena, you can repeat after me. Tadvidi. Oh, sorry. It's page 220.
In the yellow Bhagavad Gita, page 220.
Page 220, 434.
Tamil bookla வந்து 4வது அத்தியாயம் 33வது பதம். 434.
434, page 220.
Page 220. Page 220. 220.
Page 433.
Okay. Everyone on that page? Okay.
Page 219.
So we can repeat. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tatpadashana. So here's the translation. So you can repeat after me. Just try to learn the truth.
Just try to learn the truth.
Approaching a spiritual master.
By approaching a spiritual master.
Inquire from him submissively.
Inquire from him submissively.
And render service unto him.
And render service unto him.
The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth.
Because they have seen the truth.
So I'll just repeat it again. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Prabhupada. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of this succession from the Lord himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in this succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. Please note the word as it is, because it'll be used in the class. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, it is said, Brahman tu shakshad bhagavat pranitenam. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot lead one to the right path. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant, without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master, and when one sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind to the disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and always ready to render service, reciprocation of knowledge and increase becomes perfect. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So in this class, we understand that the quintessence, or the very importance of the spiritual master, is paramount. And but nowadays, keeping spiritual master, as Srila Prabhupada said before he left this planet, is sometimes like keeping a dog. So people have devalued the value of keeping a spiritual master. They have kept it like a fashion. Well, I have a spiritual master, you don't. He has a spiritual master, he doesn't. So having a spiritual master is, once you have a spiritual master, it's a responsibility to serve the spiritual master submissively. As we have just read in Srila Prabhupada's purport, he's used the word submissive or submissively at least 3 or 4 times. He stressed that in just a short purport compared to some other purports which have a much longer length. In this short purport, he stressed the word submissively. So what does submissive mean? It means in the mood of humility. That is, I'm not this body, I'm the menial servant of the spiritual master. So there are many, countless instructions or verses in the Vedas that stress the importance of having a spiritual master. Because without having a spiritual master, it is said that whatever advancement in Krishna consciousness you do, the effect is zero. You cannot make any advancement in Krishna consciousness. While you're making advancement, that advancement will not deliver you back to Godhead. So that's a very, very important point, and we have to realize that point that, yes, we do accrue some benefit from action in Krishna consciousness, but unless we have taken shelter of a spiritual master, the effect of that is zero. And I'll explain why that in the class will become important and relevant. So in the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, one of the key scriptures, Rupa Goswami says, Adao Guru Ashrayam, it's a very important verse, we know it. Sadharma pracha sadhu marg anukamam. What it means is that the very first thing one has to do is seek out a spiritual master. Adao Guru Ashrayam, that is, take his shelter. And after you take his shelter, then he will basically teach you all the tenets, all the rules and regulations of Dharma, that is, the principles laid out in the Vedas. Once you've done that, then you can follow the path of the Acharyas. That is sadhu, marga, anuga. That is, marga, anuga is to follow the path laid out by the spiritual masters before your spiritual master. And that's how you understand Vedic knowledge. So, going to Krishna is not possible. One can say, well, I can go directly to Lord Krishna. We know that, again, in scriptures that's not possible, and Prabhupada has said that in his daily discussion with his disciples. He said that Krishna and the spiritual master are like 2 parallel lines. So we know that a train cannot go forward unless we have two parallel lines, and the lines are exactly parallel. So mathematics, we know that the middle, the end point, and the starting point are equidistant to each other for it to be a parallel line. Something like that, I remember from the days of mathematics. So I'm sure some of these students can give a better explanation of the meaning or definition of parallel lines. But anyhow, those parallel lines have to be perfectly equidistant. So that means we must be serving not only Lord Krishna at the same time, at the same pace, and the same genuineness, we must also be serving the spiritual master at the same time. So if one derails, that is, if we stop serving the spiritual master and thinking, oh, I have a spiritual master, but now for some reason I cannot serve him, then Krishna won't accept that service. Similarly, if the spiritual master, if you have a spiritual master, but you're not serving the Vaishnavas, who are very dear to Lord Krishna, the spiritual master will not be able to take you back to Lord Krishna. It's like a parallel line. So it is through the mercy of the spiritual master that Lord Chaitanya instructed back over 500 years ago to Rupa Goswami. He said, "Hey Rupe." When you say Rupe, that means he said it with great love. He said that Brahmanda Brahmite Kone Bhagavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhaktalata Beach. That means that these living entities, there are millions and countless of living entities, and they're wandering up and down the ladder of the universe. Sometimes they're in the higher planets, sometimes they're in the middle planets, sometimes they're in the lower planets, sometimes they make the body of an ant, a body of a germ, a demigod body, or the body of a human being on this planet. But what happens is that unless they get in contact with a Vaishnava or a Guru, they will keep wandering up and down this ladder. And it is only through the mercy of the Guru that he can sow the seed of the creeper devotional service. So with his mercy, the seed is planted into the heart and the desire of that aspiring disciple, and through that, you can then start your journey back to Godhead. That is, you can develop your creeper devotional service. So unless you have that mercy, it's not possible to go back to Godhead. Now, we know that every morning, for Mangal Arati, we sing the prayers to the spiritual master. There are two key prayers that we sing. The first prayer that we sing is the Guru Astakam prayers, written by Acharyas, by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And then we'll also do the Guru Puja prayers, which is the Guru Mandalam prayers, written by Narottam Das Thakur. So we know that in the last stanza, the last two stanzas, it goes as follows: Shakshat Trevena, Sakshat Hari Trevena. Okay? So Sakshat means that there's ample proof and there's witnessing. Hari is Lord Krishna, and Trevena means that he is a representative and non-different from Lord Krishna. So Sakshat Trevena, so it goes on and so forth. So what it means is that the spiritual master is to be considered as good as God. So sometimes people confuse that message thinking that he is God, but he is as good as God. Similarly, for example, in the city of, let's say, Toronto, well, maybe we'll not use that example right now, but let's say in the city of Brampton, there's a mayor, okay? So you have the mayor, but suppose you cannot meet the mayor, well, then you have your local councillor in your area. So the councillor is the one that represents the mayor of that area. And if you have any grievances or complaints, then you first go to that councillor. So that councillor to you is as good as going to the mayor. Similarly, the spiritual master is basically the postman, or he's the mediator between you and Lord Krishna. And then it says in the last stanza, the Yasa Prasada Bhagavad Prasado, Yasa Prasadan Namikit Gopi. That means that without the benediction of the spiritual master, it is not possible to get to Lord Krishna. And it is only through his mercy that he can take you back to Lord Krishna. So unless you have his mercy, you cannot go back to Lord Krishna. It is said right there in that stanza. So there is undoubted proof that you need to have a spiritual master to go back to Godhead. Now once you've chosen a spiritual master, and once you take a shelter, initiation from him, he becomes your spiritual master life after life. So sometimes that point is confusing. So the term for that is used as Satguru. So he's your Satguru, that means he's your Throne Guru, and you're Sat Shiksha, that means forever, whether in this life or the subsequent lives to come, until you go back to Lord Krishna, and even there, he remains your spiritual master. So what is the proof of that? Okay, the proof of that is we sing the Guru Vandana prayers. We say, Janmay Janmay Prabhu say, okay? Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. So that means the lotus feet of the spiritual master are the only means to obtain the mercy of Sri Krishna. And I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. And by his grace, one can cross over the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. So that's the first stanza. But then later on it says, Chakradana Vilajay Jame Jame Prabhu say. That means that that the spiritual master has opened my eyes, okay? And through that, he has given me the gyan, he's given me the knowledge, and he makes my spiritual master birth after birth. He's my Lord birth after birth. That is the translation of the Guru Vandanam prayers. So it's right there. That means that the spiritual master remains your spiritual master birth after birth. So therefore, we must serve him submissively. Now, this concept of Satguru is actually explained further by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur, who is none other than the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. So when he was leaving his body, he was saying that there actually is no Sat Shish. That means I have many Shishas, that means I have many disciples, but no one of them is a Sat Shish. That means no one of them is my eternal disciple. So what did he mean by that? He meant that, although I've given them initiation and although I've given them instructions, none of them have been able to carry out my orders as it is. Okay? So he instructed that is very important, that once we take our vows, once we make our promises in front of the fire, in front of the deities, in front of the congregation, in front of the representatives of this movement, our vows are basically just like when you go to a court, you swear, that you're going to say the truth and nothing but the truth. Similarly, your vows are there eternally. So he said that people have broken his vows and there's no Sat Shish. Of course, we all know that his only true guru, his only true disciple was Srila Prabhupada. So let me just share a joke with you. Now, we all know that Bhagavad Gita, this Bhagavad Gita that we have, out of the other 600 versions of Bhagavad Gita, is the only one that says as it is, okay? So we understand what is meant by as it is, because when people take this home, they leave this Bhagavad Gita in their house as it is. They follow the words of the Bhagavad Gita, they leave it as it is. In fact, I've done that. Many years ago, I received the Bhagavad Gita as it is and left it on the shelf as it is until we got the mercy of the devotees. So we should not do it as it is in that sense, but as it is according to what Prabhupada said in his purport. Okay, so when the Satguru, when our eternal Guru actually leaves this body or leaves this planet, then he still remains your Guru. Okay. Now you might say, well, he might end up somewhere else, I might end up somewhere on a planet. So how does he remain my Satguru? Well, the thing is that he sends his representative, he sends his agent or confidant to make sure that you continue where you left on from the last lifetime, okay? So even though you will continue to do your devotional service, he continues to remain your spiritual master life after life after life through another medium. Now, it is said as well that the Guru actually never returns to the spiritual world. Why? Because for one reason is that he must stay behind until all his disciples are ready to be able to get back to the spiritual world. And also because he's also very, very compassionate. We know that from Srila Prabhupada, once someone asked Srila Prabhupada, what happens to all these spiritual masters that have come before you? Well, he says that they've been going to different planets, different universes, to liberate the people there. So they actually, while they are always with Lord Krishna and his associates, they're always serving by delivering this message to all the fallen souls. So they keep coming back again and again. And we know that Srila Prabhupada right now on another planet, another universe, doing the same thing that he did about 40 years ago, less than 40 years ago. So these great acharyas, because of their unfathomable compassion, they're always trying to serve Lord Krishna by showing this compassion that's known as Param Dukha Dukhi. They're always trying to come and claim these fallen souls, like Srila Prabhupada did back in 1960. So the question that becomes is, how do we qualify ourselves to receive the mercy of the Guru? We know that we have to choose a Guru, but what are the steps? Now this is a big area of discussion, so we'll just summarize in short point form. The first thing we have to understand is that we must remove some anarthas. So anartha means, things that are unwanted. These are desires that have been accumulating for many lifetimes. Right from the time that we left the spiritual world, we've been accumulating these points, these air points that are not actually points that we want to have. We want to dispose of these points and sell them off. So we must try to get rid of these unwanted desires, okay? And there are 4 types of anarthas, okay? And this has been explained by the great acharyas, and explained by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's been explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti in many, many books. So basically, without getting into too much detail, there are 4 types of anarthas. One is anarthas due to past sins, from bhukti and mukti, that is our desire to get liberated and our desire to self-enjoy. There's desire to, from pious activities. So someone might say, well, doing a pious activity, how does that, cause a desire? Well, the thing is that when we do something pious, we actually may do it in a mode of goodness or a different mode, in the sense that we want some reward for that. So therefore we have some underlying desire to, let's say, get fame, or to say, oh, I'm the biggest donor in the temple, and so forth. So that's because of pious activities. Or the other thing is that, for example, when you're performing bhakti, that is pure devotional service, what happens is that, just like in a garden, if you don't plant, if you put in your plant, but you do not put fertilizer and anti-weed chemicals, the weeds will start to grow. So as you're doing your bhakti seva, these other hindrances come about. These are weeds, so weeds start growing along with the devotional creeper. So that's how you get anarthas. And the 4th thing is, the most serious, is by committing offenses, known as aparad. So aparad, what is the root word of aparad? Aparad comes from Radha, and aparad means something that is higher than Radharani, or something that's without Radharani. So we know that, of course, for devotees, we cannot serve without having Radharani's blessings. So aparad means either without Radharani or going above Radharani's instructions. And we know that's not possible. So when you commit aparad, again, it's a big subject matter. Basically, I want to explain to you that there's about 10 types of aparad, specifically nama-aparad. There's other types of aparad, such as seva aparad, there's aparad in terms of deity worship and so forth. But we're specifically focusing on offenses against chanting the holy name. So that's called nama-aparad. Now, again, there's 10 offenses, and the ones that are most important is actually the 3rd offense, okay? So I'll explain to you why the 3rd offense is most important. So the 1st offense basically says that one should not blaspheme a devotee who spent his life propagating the movement. So we think, yes, that is the most important offense. In fact, it is the most important offense. Srila Prabhupada has said that many, many times in the purpose of Bhagavatam and other areas, that if one commits an offense, for whatever reason, against a Vaishnava, he will get punished, okay? But then also he says, and also his predecessor, his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj says, that it's actually the 3rd offense that's the most important offense. I'll explain why. So the 3rd offense basically says that one should not disobey the orders of the spiritual master. So if we disobey the orders of the spiritual master, not only we disobey what he has said to us, but we also offend him. And he's, of course, a great Vaishnava, so we also commit aparad in terms of the 1st order, the 1st offense. So it becomes very, very serious if you disobey his orders. Okay, if you think that he's one thing that we commonly think of is, oh, well, he's an ordinary man. Sometimes thought might go like that, why does he do this, or we question what he does. So what happens is that aparad becomes very, very serious, and that aparad basically, we have to end up paying for that. So we should be very, very careful that whatever the instructions are of the spiritual master, we should obey them as best as possible. Okay? So the third part is a very serious aparad. So the Vaishnava aparad, that's Nam Ninda, or Vaishnava Ninda, or Seva, or Sevak Ninda, whatever you might call it, or which is the 1st aparad, is also very, very important, but also the Guru Agriyan, that's known as the 3rd aparad, is also very, very serious. So we should be very careful that as Vaishnavas we avoid these offenses. Now the thing is that if the question is, well, what if you commit aparad? Now again, that's a big subject matter. But what happens is that if you commit Vaishnava aparad, then you go to a plant called Maharoga. Okay, it's written in Bhagavatam in Canto 5, where dogs come and bite you and basically eat your flesh. Now there's very, very graphic details in Bhagavatam, so we'll leave that for another time. But if you want to hear more about it, it's in Bhagavatam in 5th canto, I believe, in chapter 26. It lays out some of the payback for some of these aparads. The other types of aparad, for example, let's say if you're cheating on your partner, then you go to a plant where you have to drink mucus and stool and pollen. That's called payoda. That's the name of the plant. Or, for example, someone comes to your house and you don't greet him properly. You greet him with anger and envy, and say, "Why did he come to my house?" Then you have to pay for that. And actually, that's a very serious aparad. What happens is that you go to a plant where jackals and birds and vultures, they pluck out your eyes. Okay? So there's very, very serious types of prad. So we should be very careful not to commit a prad, particularly to anyone who serves Krishna. Now, going back to the anarthas, these unwanted desires, these anarthas actually can remain in our consciousness for a very, very long time, okay? Just like, for example, if you put something into the freezer, you can preserve it for a very long time. Similarly, these anarthas can stay in this very long time. And how do we remove our anarthas? Well, that's another subject matter, but the fact of the matter is that even up to the stage of, let's say, if you're advancing Krishna consciousness, unless you're at the stage of prema, you can still have these anarthas. And the example is given of that of Bharat Maharaj. So we know that Bharat Maharaj was a very, very exalted devotee, but what happened was that in one of his lifetimes, he actually became attached to a young deer, a foal. Okay? So what happened was that he was in the stage above, that is the stage of attachment, ecstasy, emotional advancement, which is stage just before prema. Okay, so there's 8 stages that Rupa Goswami has outlined in his Nectar of Devotion, starting with basically that, first of all, you must have faith, then you must associate with devotees, then you must do the 9 processes of devotional service known as, then you must do bhajana sadhu sangha, then you must do another nivritti or bhajana kriya. So bhajana kriya is the 3rd stage, which basically means you must take initiation and you must perform the 9 processes of devotional service, such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So that's known as bhajana kriya, okay? So after that comes the removement of ananta nivritti. So when you start removing these unwanted desires, you can graduate up to the point where you basically develop attachment, you develop taste, and then you develop emotional benefit, and then finally you get to stage of prema. So right up to the second last stage, which is known as bhav, you can have these anarthas. So this Bharat Maharaj, he was at the stage of bhav, but he still had this anartha that he had a desire for this attachment to his dough. So what happened in his next life, he became a deer, and the story goes on forward. So you have to be very, very careful that these anarthas can stay with us for a very, very long time. So sometimes you say, well, you know, I'm perfect and this devotee is not perfect. Again, it's not for us to judge. When we start judging others, you know, we start committing offenses. So we should try to stay away from that mentality, thinking that we're here to judge. Lord Krishna, well, there's a story that Prabhupada gives. He says that one time there was a sieve. A sieve is basically, you know, a utensil that basically, for example, you can put out, you know, sieve rice or dal and take out the grains that are unwanted. And the sieve was talking to a needle, and he was saying, "Hey, you needle, you have this big hole." And the needle said, "Well, you have many, many holes." So we're like a sieve, you know, like we try to point our finger towards someone else, but not thinking that we are also defective. Okay, we have. I'm sure you're defective, and we also commit that mistake. So it's not our lookout. It is, we have to always think that Lord Krishna's, you know, it's his concern who should be punished, who should not be punished. And of course, it is the guru. So if you have any issues, we should, you know, the guru is the one who's perfect, and he's the one that will weed out these anarthas from his disciple. So without going back to the initial point, it is without the guru's mercy that we can get Krishna. As you say, Om Gyanam Mirandasya, Gyananjana Shlakaya. So that means up until the time that we have a guru, our eyes are closed. So when we meet a guru and he gives us shelter, it opens our eyes. Om Gyanam. Okay? Mirandasya. And similarly, as you said earlier, because of the mercy of the guru, through the Guru Vandanam prayers, it is only that he can take us back to the spiritual master, to Lord Krishna. Okay, so let's now move to part 2 of the talk. So we'll shift to the focus of Prabhupada's books, okay? So why are we shifting the focus? Well, the reason is that we can get knowledge from these books. And one of the things that, when we take initiation, we say, okay, well, we're not supposed to we're supposed to follow the 4 regular principles and chant a minimum of 16 rounds every day. But there's also another vow that's implied in that. That is the vow of serving Lord Krishna by reading his books, okay? And that's one vow that we do not actually follow too well. Why? Because of our schedules. You know, we say, okay, well, it's the end of the day, I've just finished my 17th round, and, you know, and so forth, and now it's 12 o'clock, okay, I'll read it tomorrow, okay? So that's that's also implied in the vow. So we should read Prabhupada's books, whether it's for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 2 hours, but make it a habit every day. Okay? Prabhupada, now there's some controversy about this statement. There's some controversy actually whether Prabhupada had said it or not. But basically, aside from that, it is said that preaching is the essence. We have heard this many times. Books are the basis. Utility is the principle, and purity is the force, or cleanliness is the force. Okay? So this actually came out back in February 1977. It was actually first said in Prabhupada, and actually what happened was that some devotees showed this slogan in Chinese to Prabhupada, and that's when the slogan was started using in ISKCON. So this slogan is very important, that books are the basis for devotional service. So we always said that in terms of serving the Bhagavad Gita, we should not just keep it as it is, but we should be reading it every day. Okay? And Bhagavad Gita is very, very important, okay? Now some people actually say, well, I read the Bhagavad Gita. Why? So we say, well, to help me go to sleep, okay? Some people say that if I can't sleep, then I'll take the Bhagavad Gita. And within 5 minutes after reading a verse, I'm asleep, sound asleep, okay? That's not the intent of reading the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, that's not right. Okay, now, when we go back and we see what Prabhupada did, he spent his blood, sweat, and tears to print these books, okay? To write these books, print these books, publish them, distribute them. He was the person behind this. So the story goes that one time he told his disciples, he said that before I came to this mature world, Lord Krishna, I had a discussion with Lord Krishna, and when that Lord Krishna said, you must go down to this mature world and spread my mission. Prabhupada said, no, I don't want to go to this mature world, it's a horrible place. Lord Krishna said, no, you can go down, and I'll take care of everything for you. Just go down and print and write these books and print them. Okay? He said, no, I cannot go down, and I don't want to go to this horrible place. So the third time, Lord Krishna says, you must go down, and I can assure you that I will look after everything. He said, okay, I'll go then. So what that means is Prabhupada's, one of the subtle points is that Prabhupada came specifically to print these books on behalf of his predecessors, these acharyas. So Prabhupada received the special mercy of Lord Krishna to come and print these books. Okay, so that's why he's known as Satyavesh Avatara. That means he was empowered by Lord Krishna to print these books. Otherwise, how could anyone written 84 volumes? So if you look at how many volumes of books he wrote 84 volumes. For us to read all those volumes of books, it is an uphill battle. To get through his books and just read them in his lifetime is difficult. It can be done, but it's difficult. But he not only wrote these books, but he translated the purports, got purports from other books, and wrote 84 volumes of books. So he did a task that's impossible for any person to be able to do. And it's because of the power and the mercy and the strength of Lord Krishna that he was able to do this. And yet at the same time, he traveled the globe 14 times. By the time he left his body, he had opened at least 108 temples and many other preaching centers. He had basically established many rules and regulations of daily worship. He initiated close to 5,000 disciples. So he did all this at the same time as printing these books and writing the purports late at night and early morning. So it basically, it's our onus that we should read these books every day while we're chanting and following the four regulated principles. So it's very, very important we do that. And Prabhupada said that he basically followed the same thing that the six Goswamis of Vrindavan done. So six Goswamis, their purpose, one of their main purposes was to write books. And Prabhupada said that his mission was also, like the six Goswamis, to write books. And he said that, for example, six Goswamis, every night they used to sleep under a different kalpavriksha tree. Okay? But he says that nowadays, I'm so fortunate that I can go to any temple in the world and sleep there. So by the time, because of his books, he was able to establish different temples throughout ISKCON. But his mission was the same as the Goswamis. Okay, and Prabhupada said that these purports to his books are his devotional ecstasy. What he means is that by writing these purports, he feels a form of ecstasy that no one could describe. So therefore, he felt very happy when he used to read his purports. Now there's one story between Prabhupada and one of his disciples who passed away back in 1998. His name is Shripad Tamal Krishna Goswami. So Tamal Krishna Goswami says that one time, I believe it was late at night, Prabhupada actually was not feeling well. And this was later on during Prabhupada's mission in the mid-70s when Prabhupada was slowing down. Now of course Prabhupada is for months, but externally he was showing signs of slowing down, but of course internally he was always glorious. So Tamal Krishna Goswami told him that Prabhupada, you must stop slowing down and stop writing these books. But Prabhupada told him is that he told him that as long as Thanks. So he said that as long as I'm on this planet, as long as I'm alive, I will write and preach these books. Okay? So he said that writing these books was one of his main tasks. And therefore, because of this, right to the very end, in fact, if you see that when he left his body in Vrindavan, he was still translating the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada had a great desire to print and publish these books as much as possible. The other important thing of reading these books is that we're serving the Guru and spiritual master through two ways, okay? We can either serve the Guru through short distance, that is known as Vapu, or we can serve the Guru through Vani. Okay, so we heard of Vani and Vapu. Vani means basically serving the spiritual master through long distance, that's through his instructions, and Vapu through physically serving him in person. So the analogy is that, for example, when you buy a plan, a long distance plan, what do we care about more? Do we care about the long distance charges, or do we care about the short distance charges? Right? We care about long distance charges, right? Because we know that they're going to be more. So similarly, if you think about that, it's it actually is more relishable to serve the Guru through his instructions rather than serve him physically. So to finish off in the next 15 minutes, I'll just describe to you some stories and some tips on how to study Srila Prabhupada's books. So what I thought I'd do is I'd share some humorous stories about this and some instructive stories. And I wanted to thank His Grace Gauranga Prabhu because I came across one of his lectures. So Gauranga Prabhu is a very active preacher in ISKCON Chopati, some of you may know him, and he's a very magnificent preacher. So some of these stories are from his books and lectures, from his lectures rather, not his books. So now one of the stories is actually from a book called The Memoirs of a Modern Day Saint, okay? And this was a story that Prabhupada conveyed to one of his early disciples who was known as Hamsadutta. So Hamsadutta was one of his early disciples, and Prabhupada once asked him, he said that, why have I written these books? He said, well, I don't know, I think it's because to learn philosophy. Prabhupada said, no. I wrote these books to convince you to chant Hare Krishna. When you start chanting Hare Krishna, then you don't have to read these books anymore. Now, it's not meant that we should stop reading these books, but it's meant that the process of convincing oneself to chant Hare Krishna is a very deep process. Now, we're all chanting Hare Krishna, but we must continue to perfect it each time we chant. So Prabhupada said that the meaning of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is to read his books carefully. Now, sometimes when you read Prabhupada's books, we might not be in the right frame of mind, okay? We might take his instructions but interpret them in the wrong way. Now, there's that back in the 1960s, when Prabhupada established the first center on 26th 2nd Avenue, there was a hippie. Okay, so the hippie used to come to his classes, and Prabhupada used to keep driving this point home. He said, I'm not this body, I'm the soul. I'm not this body, I'm the soul. So the hippie was sitting in the class, heard this many, many times, and then he started realizing that, maybe this person that's on this Vyasasana is not the body, he's the soul. And then he started thinking himself that he's also not the body but the soul. So what can happen sometimes when one gives class or one gives a certain point, one must be very careful to understand what the teacher is saying. In a similar context, now here's something humorous. One time during one of the classes, someone stood up and challengingly asked Prabhupada, have you seen God? So Prabhupada said, yes, but you're in the way. So he told him to sit down. So the person was very humbled and he sat down. Okay. So the point of the fact is that, as we said in the verse, in verse 434, that we should approach the spiritual master submissively. Prani prashnena sevaya. That means we should serve the spiritual master submissively and without humility. We should understand instructions without questioning them. As it is. That is the real meaning of as it is. Okay, not to put the book on the shelf as it is, but to take instructions as it is without questioning the spiritual master. So how can we understand what is humility? Okay, so I'll give you another story. So one time this story was relayed by the same book, The Memoirs of a Modern Day Saint, by His Holiness Bhakti Swami. So this happened back in the 70s, I believe, in Amsterdam. The story goes as follows, that one time Prabhupada arrived in Amsterdam and he's conducting an initiation ceremony. a fire sacrifice to give initiation to his disciples. So that time, it was early on in the movement, and not much was known how to do a fire sacrifice and all the ingredients. So anyways, Prabhupada was there in the temple. The devotees were trying to get everything ready together, but they were actually making many, many errors along the way, and Prabhupada was sitting in the back of the hall seeing what was going on. So one of the things that they forgot to do was actually bring fruits to the sacrifice. So Prabhupada said, we need fruits, the sacrifice is starting, someone has to get fruits. Someone went down to the kitchen, cut up some fruits, and brought fruits to the sacrifice. Now we know that we cannot offer cut fruits in the sacrifice, okay? So Prabhupada got annoyed and irritated. So at the same time as Prabhupada was getting upset and irritated, a person that was coming to the temple regularly saw this. So he remembered that when he used to come to temple, and if anyone would get a bit annoyed or irritated for whatever reason, the devotees would say, just chant Hare Krishna. So what he did, he went to Srila Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, I see you're getting annoyed. Why don't you just chant Hare Krishna? So Prabhupada got out his bead bag and started chanting Hare Krishna. So that shows how humble Prabhupada was, that he was not there to question anyone, he would simply take it out of humility. So now Prabhupada basically said that these purports are as devotional ecstasy. But sometimes when we read his books, our mind can go off elsewhere. Okay, our focus, we think that we're reading a purport, but at the end of the purport, we think, oh my God, my mind was somewhere else. I was thinking of whatever reason, what was happening to my stocks, or I had to fill gas in my car before the rate goes up tomorrow. So your mind starts to wander everywhere else, okay? So how do you keep focus on these books? Well, first of all, we must understand the following point. We know that, for example, Lord Krishna incarnates many, many times. He incarnates as a fish avatar known as Matsya, he comes as a turtle avatar as Kurma, he comes as a Purush avatar as Purusharama, as a wheel-axing king. He comes as a half-man, half-lion incarnation as Narasimhadev recently. In the form of books, Lord Krishna comes as Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is none other than Lord Krishna. In fact, it's a literary incarnation of Lord Krishna. So we must understand that these books are the incarnation of Lord Krishna, his expansion. So if you think of that way, and we're reading a purport, then we'll stay more focused on that purport. Also, the other important thing is that we must accept the will of Lord Krishna to the degree that we accept it, to that degree we will remain absorbed. That's a very important point. That is, to the degree that we surrender to Lord Krishna, to that degree he will make it easier for us to understand his purports. Okay? So, but the problem is that, again, these desires come about. We have these anarthas, we have these material desires. So we explained earlier that to get rid of these desires, we must get rid of the attachment. That is not, we must get rid of attachment, we must focus our attachment onto Lord Krishna. As we focus the attachment onto Lord Krishna, our material desires wane, and our spiritual desires increase over time. And that's known as asakti. So over time, in the process, going from, starting from Shadra all the way to Prema, as you start to refocus your desires, you start getting yourself attached to these spiritual desires. So how does one become attached to serving Lord Krishna? It's very, very simple. The most important thing is that we should continue following our vows and doing sadhu sangha. That's very, very important. At the same time, we must take up seva, okay? We must take up seva. Now, sometimes what happens in ISKCON, we notice that, okay, when we're in the temple, we say, oh, this person is new. Okay, let's give him the broom and he'll start, brooming the altar, or there's some dirt on the floor, he can mop the floor. So what we have noticed is sometimes when you start a service in ISKCON, that service continues. No matter what the time you start, you get initiated, okay, good, okay, I'm initiated now, and I don't have this. No, Prabhu, you're doing good, keep doing the seva. Then you go into another ashram, you become a gresta, Oh, well, so what service are you doing, Prabhu? Oh, I have to come every Sunday and clean the temple. Or this bhakta, he started cooking, and he'll start cooking all the time. So the service attitude starts all throughout from time that you're a bhakta right up to the time you're sannyasi. Okay, so the service continues. But there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But the thing is that we should become not attached to our service. We should become prideless. We should think that this service is given by the mercy of Krishna through an agent, and we should continue to serve Lord Krishna. example of attachment to service is given by story. One time, back in Srila Prabhupada's days, Prabhupada was traveling, so Prabhupada liked samosas, okay? So one of his female disciples was making samosas, and Prabhupada was ready to go and travel. So he put these samosas into the box, and Prabhupada took them out of the box and started eating them. He ate one after another, and sooner or later he had eaten at least 10 samosas. So this devotee started wondering, she asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, how many samosas are you going to eat? He said, I can eat more samosas than you can cook. He said, oh, yeah, okay. So then she started thinking, oh, well, maybe Prabhupada is liking my cooking. And then she started saying, great, okay. So then she asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, who's your favorite cook? He said, myself. So when she heard that, she said, I'm the best cook. So she basically became very, very humbled. So it shows that while one is serving, one should not become attached to that service. One should remain attached to the mercy of having that service. Now sometimes, to finish up, sometimes instead of asking for service, we ask for blessings, okay? And there's a bit of a danger in asking for blessings, especially if you're not ready to receive that blessing. So I'll tell you the story because this story happened recently in India. So, and it relates to us because it's related to cricket, okay? So one time, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, maybe some of you might have heard this story, he was traveling with a group of devotees on a plane to a city in Karnataka called Belgaum. So on that plane, there's also the Indian cricket team, okay? Have you heard the story before? Okay. So on the plane was the Indian cricket team. So we know that there are 33 crore, 330 million demigods, and out of those 330 million, there's another additional 11 demigods, according to, if you're a cricket follower, right? Because you consider a cricket, these cricket stars as a demigod. In fact, we know that after the last World Cup in Mumbai, a lot of people are offering arti to the World Cup or to the poster of these cricket players. So anyhow, during the plane ride, these two or three devotees that were with Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj, they became very ecstatic. Oh wow, we got the Indian cricket team with us, they're traveling with us. They were bouncing off their seats because they're traveling with these Mahajans, okay? So anyways, the plane landed and the ISKCON devotees got out with Maharaj, and the cricket team also got out with Maharaj. And this big kirtan, about 200 or 300 devotees had come, and they had garlands and kirtans. So the Indian cricket team said, great, this is for us, this is kirtan. So they came forward to accept the garlands, but no, the garlands went to Maharaj, and the Indian cricket team said, what's going on, So one of the players of the Indian cricket team, his name was Ajay Jadeja. Okay, Ajay Jadeja. Okay, so what happened was he noticed that this Maharaj, who was a sadhu, okay, so he felt some sort of link to him. So he asked Radhanath Maharaj, he said, come out, lift your suitcase. When they were in the arrival lounge, he said, come out, lift the suitcase. So Maharaj saw him and said, oh, well, sounds like, you're an important man, you're a cricketer, and you're very, very famous. So why don't you use your knowledge base and help us, in terms of spreading the mission? He said, because you might be interested in spirituality. He said, no, Maharaj, I'm very, very busy, I don't have time for these things, but I simply want your blessings, He said, I simply want your blessings. So Maharaj said, no problem. So what happens is that about 3-4 months after that time, this actual cricketer was banned from cricket. He was banned from cricket. Why was he banned from cricket? Because he received the blessings of Maharaj. Well, actually, the story goes that he actually did some match fixing, and he was caught, and he's banned from cricket. So he actually received the blessings of Maharaj very, very nicely. So sometimes you have to be very careful that when you ask for blessings, especially from a very elevated disciple, you must be able to receive those blessings as well. So the fact of the matter is that we should be very, very careful in terms of service and seva. And last of all is that we should be convinced that this process of serving Srila Prabhupada's books will surely succeed in our voyage back to Krishna. So one should not question that, what am I doing? Will there be any guarantee at the end that I'll go back to Krishna? We should not think like that. We should have firm faith that is nishtha in the process and not be attached to our service and not be attached to the results of our service. So to finish up, we're almost out of time. I'll just tell you this one story. So we know the story that Ravana was a very, very demoniac king, and he represented these anarthas. So at the time before the battle, he went to this house of his younger brother, Vibhishan. And we know that Vibhishan was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra, right? Okay, so on the wall, when he went into the house, when Ravana went into the house, what was written? It was written Rama, 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 all over the house, okay? So Ravana became very infuriated. He said, what have you done? This is my aggressor. How can you betrayed me. How can you write the name of Rama when I'm the king, I'm your brother? He said, cool down. He said, cool down. Actually, Rama, what does it mean? Rama means, Ra is for Ravana and M is for Mandodari. So Ravana said, great, okay, you can stay, I won't kill you. Okay. So that's how a great preacher like Vibhishan can actually fool someone into thinking that how can engage in devotional service. So to wrap up, one should be very, very careful in terms of our seva to Prabhupada's books. And the only way to read the purports is by accepting spiritual master. So in closing, I humbly request you that if anyone has an aspiration, we should all have an aspiration to seek out a spiritual master. And all the spiritual masters in ISKCON right now, they're all equally capable of taking us back to Godhead. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.